I received the invitation today, cream cardstock with gold letters. Grandmother's 80th birthday. 5 years since I left that house with nothing but my laptop and the code my sister stole. My sister Meredith took everything from me. She presented my algorithms as her own to our parents. She convinced them I was mentally unstable when I tried to defend myself. She offered me a job as her assistant to learn the business properly after stealing my life's work. When I refused, she orchestrated my exile from the family. Now my security team tells me she's hired private investigators to expose me at grandmother's party. She wants to humiliate me one final time, to cement her lies about me being a delusional failure. She doesn't know that I'm now worth billions, that I've built what she stole into an empire, that I've spent 5 years preparing for this moment. I'm going to that party. And I'm bringing receipts of her crimes, the stolen patents, the embezzlement from grandmother's trust, all of it. My sister is about to learn a painful lesson about consequences. The family that threw me away is about to witness my return, and Meredith's complete destruction. The invitation arrives on customized stationery, cream-colored cardstock with gold embossing, a stark contrast to the sleek minimalism of my penthouse office. Grandmother's 80th birthday celebration. Black tie optional. RSVP required. 5 years. 5 years since I walked out of that house with nothing but my laptop and the algorithms they all dismissed as fantasy. 5 years of silence while I built Quantum Edge from concept to empire. Ms. Jericho, your 2 p.m. is waiting, my assistant says through the intercom, using the name I adopted after shedding my family identity. The name now attached to billions in venture capital and a revolutionary AI architecture that's rewriting the rules of the industry. I slide the invitation into my desk drawer next to the Forbes 30 Under 40 issue with my silhouette on the cover. I've maintained my anonymity with obsessive precision, a necessary precaution when your sister has a history of stealing your work. After my meetings, I return to find a notification from my security team. Someone's been searching for information on me, my real name, my whereabouts, my financials. The digital footprints lead back to a private investigation firm with offices in Boston. My sister Meredith was always meticulous with her betrayals. 3 hours and several encryption layers later, I'm reading transcripts of Meredith's communications with the PI firm. Her instructions are explicit. Find evidence that I've been lying about my success, fabricating proof that I'm a delusional failure, as our father had proclaimed the night I left. The memory surfaces like a shard of glass. Meredith standing behind our parents as they told me I needed professional help for my grandiose delusions about my technology. Meredith offering me a job as her assistant to learn the business properly. Meredith, who had already filed patents for my work under her name. I pull up the family photo from my secure server, the last Christmas before everything imploded. Meredith's arm around my shoulder, her smile perfect as always. What the camera didn't capture was her whispering, "No one will ever believe you over me," as the shutter clicked. I make 2 calls. The first is to my security chief. I need everything. On Meredith Lambert. Financials, communications, business dealings, everything. The second call is to the RSVP number on the invitation. Yes, I say, I'll be attending. By morning, I have the beginning of a dossier on my sister's activities over the past 5 years. The most interesting discovery, she's been serving as executor of grandmother's trust, with suspicious withdrawals that don't match the official distributions. I lean back in my chair, watching the Boston sunrise from my office window. For 5 years, I've built my defenses, accumulated my resources, honed my skills. I never planned on revenge. Success was supposed to be enough. But Meredith is planning to expose me at the one family event I might actually attend. She's bringing the fight to me. I open a new project file on my secure server and name it Nemesis Protocol. As I begin to code, I feel nothing but a cold clarity. This isn't emotional. It's algorithmic. Input, betrayal, output, justice. Meredith taught me long ago that family was just another system that could be manipulated. Now I'll show her I was paying attention. The Lambert estate looks exactly as I remember it. Georgian architecture, manicured lawns, the false promise of stability. I adjust my simple black designer dress, a stark contrast to the ornate displays of wealth I grew up with. Wealth that was always conditional on compliance. Ms. Jericho, we're in position. my security chief confirms through my earpiece. Disguised as a pearl earring, I've positioned my people throughout the venue, as waitstaff, as technology support for the event, as guests. Nothing will happen tonight that I won't know about. Phase 1 of Nemesis Protocol initiated at dawn. Evidence of financial irregularities in Meredith's company quietly submitted to 3 regulatory agencies. Time to trigger alerts during the party. I enter without announcement, observing the room before anyone notices me. There's Aunt Caroline, Dad's sister, who always called me the quiet one, as if it were a diagnosis. Uncle Philip, who once told me to leave the thinking to your sister when I tried explaining my algorithm at a family dinner. Cousins who were friendly until it became clear who had our parents' favor. And there's Meredith, holding court near the champagne fountain, gesturing dramatically as her audience nods appreciatively. She's wearing white, always the center of attention, even at someone else's celebration. Oh my God, the whisper cuts through the ambient noise as someone finally recognizes me. The room doesn't fall silent, this isn't a movie, but awareness spreads like a virus, conversations stuttering as eyes turn my way. My father sees me first. Thomas Lambert, venture capitalist and self-appointed arbiter of success, freezes with his whiskey glass halfway to his lips. My mother, Eleanor, perfectly preserved through rigorous cosmetic discipline, touches her pearl necklace, her nervous tell. Is that? She begins. Meredith turns slowly, confidence never wavering. But I see it, the micro-expression of panic before her social training kicks in. She spent 5 years creating a narrative about me. Now the subject of that narrative has walked into the room. Well, she says, voice carrying across the sudden pocket of silence. Look who's decided to grace us with her presence. Her smile is flawless, her tone suggesting mild amusement at an eccentric relative's antics. I don't respond to her. Instead, I walk directly to my grandmother, seated in a place of honor near the fireplace. Elizabeth Lambert, matriarch and the only person who ever saw me clearly. Happy birthday, grandmother, I say, kissing her cheek. Her eyes, still sharp at 80, assess me with genuine curiosity. You look successful, she says simply. I am. I feel Meredith's approach before I see her, the subtle shift in the room's energy as she moves to control the situation. We were beginning to think you'd invented an excuse to avoid us, she says, placing a proprietary hand on grandmother's shoulder. Still working on that little coding project? The bait is so obvious it's almost disappointing. I smile, not at Meredith but at the 2 men hovering near the entrance, the private investigators she hired, who now work for me at twice their previous rate. Actually, I say, I've been busy building Quantum Edge. The name drops into the conversation like a stone into still water. Near the bar, my cousin's husband, a tech journalist, chokes on his drink. The Quantum Edge? He sputters. The company that revolutionized predictive algorithms? That's valued at? 11 billion as of yesterday's market close, I finish for him. My father steps forward, confusion warring with calculation in his expression. That's impossible. Quantum Edge is run by someone named Jericho. A pleasure to meet you, I say, extending my hand. Again. Meredith's laugh is perfect, practiced, melodious, dismissive. Oh, please. Are we really doing this? I thought we were past the delusions. Exactly, as anticipated. I check my watch, a subtle, unnecessarily dramatic gesture. Your PIs should be receiving confirmation of my identity right about now, I tell her, though I believe they've had it for approximately 72 hours. Her smile falters for a millisecond. I don't know what you're talking about. The investigators from Blackwell Security, I clarify. The ones you hired to dig up evidence that I'm a failure, the ones who are now on my payroll. My mother steps between us, her social instincts kicking in. Girls, this is your grandmother's birthday. Whatever this disagreement is, it's not a disagreement, Mother, I interrupt. It's a correction of the record. But you're right, tonight is grandmother's night. I turn back to the matriarch, whose eyes haven't left my face. There's something there, not quite approval, but recognition. I brought you something, I tell her, retrieving a small box from my purse. Inside is a simple platinum necklace with a pendant, a quantum processor chip, the first successful prototype, encased in crystal. The beginning of everything, I explain as I fasten it around her neck. Dinner is announced, saving Meredith from having to respond. As we move toward the dining room, my phone vibrates with a notification. Phase 2 of Nemesis Protocol initiating. The PIs have delivered their full report on Meredith's activities to my secure server. I take my assigned seat at the table, noting with amusement that Meredith has placed me as far from grandmother as possible. It doesn't matter. The pieces are moving exactly as designed. Meredith catches my eye across the table and raises her glass in a mock toast, confidence apparently restored. She thinks this is the same old dynamic, that she still holds the power in this family system. She doesn't understand yet that I'm not playing her game. I've created an entirely new one, and in my game, this dinner is just the initialization sequence. Halfway through the exquisitely catered dinner, Meredith makes her move. I've been watching her check her phone with increasing frequency, no doubt wondering why her PIs haven't contacted her with the evidence she requested. Since we're all together, she announces, tapping her crystal glass with a silver spoon, I think it's time we address the elephant in the room. All eyes turn to her, then shift uncomfortably to me. This family has perfected the art of polite evasion, and Meredith is breaking protocol by addressing conflict directly, which means she believes she's winning. Our long-lost family member has returned with quite a story, she continues, her voice adopting the concerned tone she uses when undermining someone. And while we're all thrilled to see her, I think it's important that we're honest with each other. My father shifts in his seat, not from discomfort with the confrontation, but from eagerness. He's been waiting for this moment, for Meredith to reassert the family hierarchy he's invested in. Meredith, my mother warns softly, perhaps this isn't the time. When is the time, Mother? When she's convinced grandmother of some fantasy about being a tech mogul? When she's asking for money? I sip my water, saying nothing. The waiter refilling my glass is one of my security team. He gives an imperceptible nod. Everything is recording. The truth is, Meredith says, looking around the table to gather her audience, my sister has been struggling with reality for years. This quantum edge claim is just the latest manifestation. She reaches into a folder beside her chair, always prepared with physical evidence, a habit from her early days stealing my work. I've taken the liberty of researching quantum edge, she says, passing glossy printouts down both sides of the table. The CEO is indeed someone called Jericho, but it's a man in his 40s from Seattle. There are no public photos because he's notoriously private, but he regularly attends board meetings and industry events. The printouts show a carefully constructed digital footprint, a shadow CEO I created specifically for this moment, knowing Meredith would investigate. The family examines the pages with expressions ranging from confusion to vindication. Furthermore, Meredith continues, I've had experts look into the coding project she was working on before she left. It wasn't viable. The mathematics simply didn't work. Ask anyone in the field. Now it's time. I open my clutch and remove a small remote, pressing a single button. The large screen that was installed for a birthday slideshow flickers to life, behind Meredith. I did ask someone in the field, I say quietly. In fact, I asked the Chief Technology Officer of Microsoft last month at the Global Tech Summit. The screen shows a photo of me shaking hands with Microsoft's CTO, both of us holding an award with the Quantum Edge logo clearly visible. That's clearly doctored, Meredith says quickly, but her voice has lost its authoritative edge. Is the Forbes cover doctored as well? I ask as the image changes to show the magazine cover with my silhouette. Or the patent filings. Or perhaps the acquisition records when Quantum Edge purchased Meredith's primary competitor last year. The images cycle, documenting my company's rise. The family's attention bounces between the screen and my face, reassessing. Anyone can create fake images, Meredith insists, but she's lost her audience. Indeed, I agree, which is why I brought Mr. Harmon and Mr. Jennings. I gesture to the two men who have been observing from the edge of the room. The private investigators you hired to expose me. The men approach the table, and Meredith's composure finally cracks. Ms. Lambert hired us to investigate her sister's claims, Mr. Harmon confirms. Our firm has verified that she is indeed the founder and CEO of Quantum Edge Technologies, operating under the business name Jericho to maintain privacy. Privacy, I add. That became necessary after my initial work was stolen and patented by someone else 5 years ago. The room temperature seems to drop as understanding dawns on several faces. That's absurd, Meredith says, but her protest sounds hollow even to her own ears. Mr. Jennings places a thick folder on the table. We were also asked to investigate certain financial irregularities at Ms. Meredith Lambert's company. Those findings are included in the full report. You were working for me, Meredith hisses. We work for whoever compensates us appropriately. Mr. Jennings replies with professional detachment. Ms. Jericho's offer was substantially more competitive. My father stands abruptly. That's enough. This is your grandmother's birthday, not a corporate espionage film. Sit down, Thomas, my grandmother says sharply, speaking for the first time since the confrontation began. I want to hear what else my granddaughter has discovered. And there it is, the first seismic shift in the family power structure. My father sits, his authority, undermined in a single sentence. I think we've established the facts about Quantum Edge, I say calmly. The rest can wait for dessert. Let Meredith stew in uncertainty through the cake service. Let her wonder exactly what else I've uncovered. My phone buzzes again, Phase 3 initiating. The regulatory agencies have flagged Meredith's company for investigation, freezing certain accounts. By the time dessert arrives, her CFO will be calling in a panic. Across the table, Meredith's phone lights up with an incoming call. She glances at it, then excuses herself quickly. I need to take this, she says, her voice tight with controlled panic. I watch her hurry from the room, knowing exactly who's calling and what they're saying. The algorithm is executing flawlessly. When she returns, her face is pale beneath her perfect makeup. Is everything all right, dear? My mother asks, concern finally directed at her favored daughter. Fine, Meredith lies. Just a work issue. But it's not fine. Nothing will be fine. For Meredith again. The dessert service begins, but she barely touches her cake, her eyes fixed on me with dawning comprehension. She finally understands that this isn't just about setting the record straight. This is about consequences, and we've only just begun. After dinner, the party disperses throughout the first floor of the estate. Meredith attempts to isolate me, steering me toward the conservatory with a grip on my elbow that appears friendly, but feels desperate. What do you want? She hisses once we're alone among the orchids and ferns. Money? Public acknowledgement? Name your price. I study her face, the familiar features now twisted with something I've rarely seen there. Fear. You still think this is a negotiation, I observe. That's interesting. Everything is a negotiation. Her composure returns slightly, on familiar ground now. You're angry about the patents. Fine. We can work something out. The patents were 5 years ago, Meredith. I'm not here about the patents. Her confusion seems genuine. In her mind, stealing my work was simply business, opportunism, not betrayal. She truly doesn't understand the depth of what she did. Then what? The trust? I saw you looking at the statements earlier. So she did notice that during the pre-dinner reception, I'd accessed grandmother's financial documents, left conveniently on the study desk where family members would inevitably wander. You've been skimming from grandmother's trust for years, I confirm. Nearly $12 million diverted through shell companies that lead back to your personal accounts. Her eyes widen slightly, not at being caught, but at the precision of my knowledge. The money is invested on her behalf, she counters. Smoothly. The returns have been excellent. The non-existent returns from non-existent investments? I pull up the actual numbers on my phone. You've manufactured quarterly statements while draining the principal. Grandmother's actual holdings are worth less than half what your reports claim. For a moment, genuine shame crosses her face, the first real emotion I've seen. Not for stealing from our grandmother, but for being caught in such an unsophisticated scheme. What do you intend to do with this information? She asks finally. Nothing that isn't already done. Her phone buzzes again, the third notification in as many minutes. She glances at it and the blood drains from her face. "What have you done?" she whispers. "I've introduced transparency to your closed system." I take a step closer, my voice low. "The regulatory agencies have the trust documents. Your board has the evidence of embezzlement. And in approximately 30 minutes, when grandmother gives her speech, the entire family will know exactly who you are." The carefully constructed facade finally cracks. Meredith grabs my wrist, her nails digging into my skin. "You can't do this," she says, voice raw with panic. "You'll destroy everything." "Not everything," I correct her. "Just you." "I'll deny it all. It's your word against mine. And this family has never believed you over me." That was true once, I acknowledge. But the beautiful thing about algorithms is that they're built on data, not emotions, and data doesn't lie. I remove her hand from my wrist and straighten my sleeve. "You don't understand what you're doing," she says, a final desperate attempt. "If my company falls, 20,000 people lose their jobs. Is that what you want? To punish innocent families because of your grudge?" It's a predictable appeal to my conscience, but she's miscalculated again. "Your company isn't going to fall," I tell her. "It's going to change management." Understanding dawns in her eyes. "You're taking over." "I already have. As of this morning, I own controlling interest through a series of proxy purchases. The board vote is scheduled for Monday." The grandfather clock in the hall chimes 9 times. Right on schedule, my phone lights up with an alert. "What is that?" Meredith asks, her voice barely audible. "That's the notification that your CFO has agreed to testify against you in exchange for immunity," I explain calmly. "He's quite thorough, kept records of every illegal transaction you instructed him to make." For the first time in our lives, I watch as my sister, always composed, always in control, crumbles completely. She sinks onto a stone bench, her designer, dress pooling around her. "Why?" she asks finally. "Why not just enjoy your success? Why come back at all?" "Because you were planning to humiliate me again," I answer honestly. "You couldn't stand the possibility that I had succeeded without you, so you hired investigators to prove I was a fraud. You brought this on yourself, Meredith. And now you've won," she says bitterly. "Congratulations." "No," I correct her. "I haven't won yet. But I will in about 15 minutes when we return to the party." A realization crosses her face. "You recorded this conversation." I don't bother to confirm the obvious. Instead, I check my watch. A deliberate gesture, unnecessarily theatrical. But I allow myself this small indulgence. "Grandmother will be looking for us," I say. "We shouldn't keep her waiting." As we walk back toward the main hall, Meredith attempts one final gambit. "I can still destroy the original evidence of your early work," she threatens. "The notebooks, the prototypes, I've kept them all. Without those, how will you prove the algorithms were ever yours?" I stop and face her, genuinely curious now. "After everything I've shown you tonight, you still think you have leverage?" "I know you," she insists. "You've always cared about getting credit for your work. It's why my taking the patents hurt you so much." "That was the old me," I tell her. "The one who needed validation. The one who thought family meant something." I start walking again, leaving her to follow or not. "The patents don't matter anymore," I call over my shoulder. "What matters is what comes next." The final phase begins with a crystal champagne, flute tapping against a silver spoon, my grandmother calling for attention as she prepares to address her guests. The family gathers in the grand hall, conversations quieting as all eyes turn to the matriarch. Elizabeth Lambert has always commanded respect, even from those who whispered that she was too shrewd, too independent for a woman of her generation. Standing beside her is my father, clearly expecting to introduce her as he's done at every family event for decades. "I can take it from here, Thomas," she says, dismissing him with a gentle but firm hand on his arm. Another small shift in the power dynamics, another fracture in the established order. I watch my father's face register confusion, then resignation as he steps back. 80 years, my grandmother begins, her voice stronger than her frame would suggest. 80 years of watching this family grow, sometimes in directions I expected, often not. Her eyes scan the room, lingering briefly on each face before settling on mine. Tonight has been illuminating, she continues. I've discovered things about my grandchildren that I never knew. One has been hiding her light. She touches the quantum chip pendant at her neck, while another has been hiding something else entirely. Meredith stiffens beside me, her perfectly manicured nails digging into her palms. Before I continue, I'd like my granddaughter to share something with all of you. Grandmother gestures to me. Would you please join me? The room ripples with murmurs as I walk forward. This wasn't part of the program, wasn't listed in the evening's agenda that Meredith so carefully planned. I take my place beside my grandmother, facing the assembled family, aunts, uncles, cousins, distant relations connected by blood and mutual investments. My parents stand together near the front, my mother's hand clutching my father's arm with white-knuckled intensity. Thank you, grandmother, I say, my voice carrying easily in the hushed room. 5 years ago, I left this house with nothing but my work and the absolute certainty that none of you believed in me. A few uncomfortable shifts in posture, a few averted gazes. Tonight I returned not for vindication or reconciliation, but because a truth needed to be told. I gesture to the screens positioned around the room, originally intended for a slide. Show of family photos spanning my grandmother's 8 decades. The truth about success, about loyalty, and about consequence. The screens come to life, displaying financial records, transaction histories, emails, the irrefutable evidence of Meredith's systematic theft from our grandmother's trust. For the past 3 years, the executor of grandmother's trust has been diverting funds for personal use. I explain matter-of-factly. Nearly $12 million disguised as investments that exist only on paper. Gasps and whispers ripple through the crowd. My mother's face drains of color. My father's jaw clenches. Simultaneously, that same individual has been running a company built on stolen intellectual property, my intellectual property, while constructing an elaborate fiction about my mental stability to ensure I would never be believed if I returned. I turn slightly to face Meredith directly. That individual is my sister, Meredith Lambert. All eyes shift to her. For once in her life, Meredith has no prepared response, no counter-narrative ready to deploy. This is absurd, my father finally says, stepping forward. Whatever game you're playing. It's not a game, Thomas, my grandmother interrupts. I've seen the evidence. It's incontrovertible. He turns to her, bewildered by this betrayal from an unexpected quarter. You can't possibly believe. The regulatory authorities believe it, I interject. The SEC believes it. And as of 30 minutes ago, the board of Meredith's company believes it. The only question remaining is what you choose to believe. My mother finds her voice at last. There must be some mistake, some explanation. There's no mistake, my grandmother says firmly. Only a reckoning that's long overdue. As if on cue, the main doors open. 2 plainclothes officers enter, their badges visible on belt clips. Meredith Lambert? One of them calls out. The room goes completely silent. Meredith straightens her shoulders, summoning the composure that has carried her through a lifetime of calculated performances. This is a private event, she says coolly. Whatever this is about can wait until Monday. My attorneys will... Ms. Lambert, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of securities fraud, embezzlement, and wire fraud. The officer steps forward, unfolding an official document. You have the right to remain silent. As the Miranda warning echoes through the grand hall, I watch the final collapse of the family mythology. The golden child in handcuffs, the outcast, vindicated, the patriarch and matriarch forced to confront their willful blindness. You did this, my father says to me, his voice low and dangerous. You destroyed your own sister. No, my grandmother corrects him before I can respond. Meredith destroyed herself. And you helped her, Thomas, by never questioning, never verifying, never seeing what was right in front of you. As Meredith is escorted out, she turns to look at me one last time. There's no remorse in her eyes, only a cold calculation, already, planning her next move, her legal defense, her eventual comeback. But there will be no comeback. The Nemesis protocol was thorough, the evidence irrefutable, the consequences absolute. When the doors close behind her, my grandmother takes my hand. "The trust needs a new executor," she says simply. "I accept," I reply. My father steps forward, automatic protest forming on his lips, but my grandmother silences him with a look. "This isn't open for discussion, Thomas. The decision is made." The party dissolves after that, guests slipping away with murmured excuses and wide eyes, eager to share the scandal with those who weren't present to witness it. My parents leave. Without speaking to me again, their worldview too shattered to form coherent responses. In the quiet aftermath, I sit with my grandmother in her study, the same room where I first showed her my early designs 5 years ago, designs she admired but couldn't defend when Meredith claimed them as her own. "You planned all of this," she says finally. Not a question, but an observation. "Yes." With remarkable precision. Precision is what I do best. She studies me with eyes that have seen 8 decades of human nature at its best and worst. "Was it worth it?" she asks. I consider the question carefully. "It wasn't about satisfaction," I tell her honestly. "It was about correction. A system, out of balance, needed to be recalibrated. And now? Now, the algorithm has executed completely. The program is finished." She nods slowly, understanding what I mean. The vengeance itself was never the point. It was simply the necessary process. To restore order, to establish truth, to ensure that actions had their proportionate consequences. "What will you do with her company?" my grandmother asks. "Rebuild it. Legitimize it. Use it for what it should have been all along." "And the family?" I look around the study, at the photographs documenting generations of Lamberts, all the accumulated history and expectation that once defined me. "That's a separate equation," I say finally. "One I haven't solved yet." My grandmother smiles slightly. "Some algorithms take longer than others." She's right, of course. The Nemesis protocol was elegant in its simplicity. Identify corruption, document, evidence, execute justice. The mathematics of family, of hurt and healing, of boundaries and belonging is infinitely more complex. But as I leave the Lambert estate that night, driving back to the life I built from nothing, I feel something I haven't experienced in 5 years, possibility. Not the closed system of revenge, but the open architecture of choice. The algorithm of vengeance has completed its function. Now I can write something new. 3 months after grandmother's birthday party, I stand in the lobby of what was once Lambert Technologies, now restructured and rebranded as Quantum Edge East. The corporate headquarters has been completely redesigned, glass and steel replacing the heavy wood and leather that characterized Meredith's reign. Transparency in architectural form. The transition wasn't without challenges. Employees loyal to Meredith resigned in protest. Industry analysts predicted the company would collapse within weeks. Competitors circled, sensing vulnerability. But those obstacles were minor compared to the ones I'd already overcome. "Ms. Jericho, the board is ready for you," my executive assistant says, handing me a tablet with the quarterly report loaded. I take a moment to review the numbers as I walk toward the boardroom. Revenue up 32%. Staff retention stabilized at 85%. 3 new patents filed, all properly attributed to their actual creators. A corporate culture rebuild centered on innovation and ethical practices. The board members rise as I enter, a courtesy they never extended to Meredith despite her demands. For deference. They've learned that true authority doesn't need to announce itself. "Good morning," I say, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Let's begin with the trust update." I pull up the latest report on the Elizabeth Lambert Trust, displaying it on the wall screen. Under my management, the assets have not only been protected but have grown substantially, the legitimate investments yielding returns that Meredith's fictional ones never could. "As you can see, we've recovered nearly 80% of the misappropriated funds," I explain. The remaining 20% is likely unrecoverable due to Meredith's personal expenditures, but the trust is now structured to prevent any similar abuses in the future. The board members nod approvingly. Most of them were handpicked by me after the takeover, but a few were retained from Meredith's era, those who had opposed her more questionable decisions but lacked the power to stop her. "And what about the criminal case?" asks Harold Winters, one of the retained board members, his voice carefully neutral. I allow myself a small smile. Ms. Lambert has accepted a plea deal. 10 years, eligible for parole in 6, and full restitution to the affected parties. What I don't mention is that the plea deal was my idea, presented to the prosecutors as a way to avoid a lengthy trial that would further damage the company's reputation. The irony isn't lost on me. My final act of control over Meredith's fate was ensuring she received a lesser punishment than she deserved. The board meeting continues with discussions of upcoming projects, market positioning, and strategic partnerships. I listen attentively, offering guidance where needed, but my mind occasionally drifts to my sister. I visited her once, 2 weeks after her arrest, not out of compassion or curiosity, but to deliver a message. "The notebooks you threatened to destroy," I told her across the prison visiting room table. "I have them now. And the prototypes. Everything you took from me, I've reclaimed." She looked smaller somehow, without her designer clothes and perfect makeup, without her audience and her power. "Are you happy now?" she asked, her voice hollow. "Now that you've taken everything from me?" "I didn't take anything from you," I replied. "I simply revealed what you really are. The consequences followed naturally." It was the last time I saw her. The last time I needed to. After the board meeting, I find myself standing at the window of what was once Meredith's office, looking out over the Boston skyline. My phone rings, the display showing my grandmother's name. "How was the board meeting?" she asks when I answer. "Productive. The company is stabilizing faster than projected." "And how are you?" The question catches me off guard. For months, all my conversations have been about the business, the transition, the future. No one has asked about me. I pause, searching for the right word. "Recalibrating." "That sounds appropriate," she says, and I can hear the smile in her voice. "I've been thinking about what you said about family being a complex equation." "Yes?" "Well, perhaps we could start with a simpler formula. Dinner, just the two of us, next week?" I find myself smiling. "I'd like that." As I end the call, my assistant enters with a stack of documents requiring my signature, merger agreements, and partnership contracts that will further solidify Quantum Edge's position in the market. The top document catches my eye, a collaboration with a small tech startup founded by young innovators from disadvantaged backgrounds. The kind of opportunity I never had, the support that might have changed everything 5 years ago. I sign it immediately. In the months since Meredith's fall, I've received numerous interview requests, offers for book deals, invitations to tell my story of triumph over betrayal. I've declined them all. My vindication wasn't for public consumption. It was a private reckoning, a realignment of truth. What happens next isn't about Meredith at all. It's about building something that was never possible while she occupied so much space in my mind. Something entirely new. I place the signed documents in my outbox and open my laptop, beginning to code. Not an algorithm of vengeance this time, but something more complex, more enduring, an algorithm of creation. 1 year to the day after grandmother's birthday party, I return to the Lambert estate. The grounds are less immaculately maintained. Now, small signs of change visible in the slightly overgrown hedges and the absence of seasonal flowers in the garden beds. My parents still live here, but they've downsized the staff since their financial situation changed. I park my car in the circular driveway and wait a moment before getting out. The last time I was here, I arrived with vengeance encoded in every cell. Today, I come with a different purpose. The front door opens before I can ring the bell. My father stands in the doorway, aged beyond the single year that's passed. The Lambert family name no longer carries the weight it once did in Boston society or business circles. The family's fall from grace was swift and comprehensive, collateral damage from Meredith's crimes, and my calculated exposure of them. "Grandmother is waiting for you in the sunroom," he says by way of greeting. No mention of our estrangement, of the fact that this is the first time we've spoken directly since that night. I nod acknowledgement and step past him into the foyer. The house feels different. The atmosphere altered not just by the reduced household staff, but by the fundamental shift in the family dynamic. The portraits of distinguished Lambert still hang on the walls, but they seem to look down with judgment rather than pride. My mother appears at the top of the stairs, hesitates, then descends slowly. She's lost weight, and her clothes, while still expensive, lack the absolute precision of tailoring that once characterized her wardrobe. "You look well," she says as she reaches the bottom step. "Thank you," I reply, keeping my tone neutral. "So do you." It's a polite fiction, but sometimes social facades serve a purpose. "Your grandmother has been looking forward to your visit," she continues. "She's had the chef prepare all your favorites." This at least seems genuine, this acknowledgement that someone in this house knows what I like, remembers what matters to me. "That was thoughtful of her," I say, then add, "and you." A small olive branch, not forgiveness or reconciliation, just the recognition that healing sometimes requires a first step, however tentative. I follow the familiar path to the sunroom at the back of the house, a space flooded with natural light year-round, where my grandmother has always preferred to spend her mornings. She sits in her favorite chair by the windows overlooking what remains of the garden, a tablet resting in her lap. "Right on time," she says, looking up as I enter. "Always precise." I bend to kiss her cheek, noting that she seems stronger than the last time we had dinner together, 2 weeks ago at my penthouse. "I brought something for you," I tell her, handing over a small box similar to the one that contained the quantum chip necklace a year ago. She opens it carefully, revealing a simple data drive. "It's done?" she asks, eyes brightening with interest. "Completed yesterday. The first complete integration of quantum processing with neural network adaptability. We're calling it the Lambert protocol." She touches the drive with reverent fingers. "Named for me?" "Named for the woman who saw potential where others saw delusion," I confirm. It seemed fitting. The Lambert protocol represents everything the stolen algorithms could have been if Meredith had understood their true value instead of merely exploiting them for short-term profit. It's the culmination of 5 years of solitary work followed by 1 year of collaborative development with the best minds I could recruit. "And the launch is next week?" she asks, setting the drive carefully. Back in its box. "Wednesday. We're expecting significant media coverage." She smiles, a mixture of pride and satisfaction in her expression. "And Meredith?" "Has been informed, as per the terms of the settlement." What I don't elaborate on is the detailed letter I had delivered to Meredith's prison cell, explaining precisely how the Lambert protocol evolved from the work she stole, how her short-sighted exploitation of my original algorithms limited their potential, and how the technology will now transform industries she can no longer participate in. Not vindictive, simply factual. A final reckoning of accounts. "Your parents will be there," my grandmother says, watching my reaction closely. This is unexpected. "At the launch?" They asked if they could attend. I told them I would consult with you. I consider this carefully. My parents have made tentative overtures over the past year, awkward phone calls and emails that neither acknowledge their complicity in Meredith's betrayal nor seek outright forgiveness. They exist in a liminal space, no longer the authority figures who dismissed me, not yet the equals who might someday understand me. They can attend, I decide, as guests, not as family representatives. My grandmother nods, understanding the distinction. "And the trust transfer? Is that still proceeding today?" "Yes, the papers are with my assistant now. By this afternoon, you'll have full control again." This was my final act as executor of the Elizabeth Lambert Trust, restoring complete authority to my grandmother, now that every trace of Meredith's financial manipulations has been erased and legitimate investments put in place. Unlike my sister, I never saw the trust as something to exploit. "And you're certain about the other matter?" she asks, her tone careful. "The foundation?" "Absolutely certain. The Jericho Foundation, funded with 20% of my personal wealth, will launch the same day as the Lambert Protocol. Its mission: to identify and support young innovators whose ideas are dismissed or stolen by those with more power and influence. A systematic correction to the imbalance I once suffered from. Meredith would call it sentimental, my grandmother observes. Meredith never understood the difference between sentiment and principle, I reply. That was always her fundamental error. We talk for another hour about the business, about the future, about everything except the past that can't be changed. As I prepare to leave, my grandmother hands me a sealed envelope. She sent this last week, she explains. Asked me to give it to you when I thought you might actually read it. I don't need to ask who she is. I take the envelope but don't open it. I'll read it, I promise. Eventually. My grandmother nods, satisfied. That's all anyone can ask. As I drive away from the Lambert estate, the envelope sits on the passenger seat beside me. I already know what it contains, some mixture of justification and accusation, perhaps even genuine regret. What it doesn't contain is anything that could possibly matter to me now. Because the truth is, the moment Meredith was led away in handcuffs, she ceased to be relevant to my story. The moment my algorithms were recognized for what they truly were, her theft became merely historical footnote. The moment I decided to create rather than destroy, she lost whatever power remained in my memory of her betrayal. I stop at a traffic light and glance at the envelope. Then I reach over, pick it up, and place it in the glove box without opening it. Perhaps someday curiosity will outweigh indifference, but not today. Today, I have a company to run, a protocol to launch, a foundation to establish. Today, I have dinner plans with my grandmother, the one person who saw me clearly when it mattered most. Today, I have algorithms to write that have nothing to do with vengeance and everything to do with what comes next. The light turns green, and I accelerate forward. In the rearview mirror, the Lambert estate recedes, growing smaller with distance, until it disappears entirely around a bend in the road. Ahead of me stretches the highway back to the city, to my company, to the future I've coded line by deliberate line. Not an ending, but an elegant continuation function. The next chapter. In an algorithm entirely of my own design.